So I enjoy a variety of board games. And if there had to be one theme, I have three organization systems piles, right? The first pile are games that I play weekly, that I play monthly. I mean, I love these games, right? Pathfinder the Adventure card game, Dark Souls, Zombicide Black Plague, both from the solo perspective and also from the perspective of, in the board gaming group, all of us, we kind of bring one or two games when we have a session to meet up, and then we kind of decide in the moment. So you've got a little bit of real politicking going on here. Like, you want to play Zombicide Black Plague, you got to sell the group. It's a lot of fun. So that first pile is always in circulation. They don't even go up on the shelf. Second pile are games that I need to play more of, games that I love, but the stars need to align. It's like clockwork. Certain things need to happen to make those happen. Kingdom Death Monster. Kingdom Death Monster, fantastic, but it's a commitment in terms of setup. It's a commitment in terms of getting together to play and really develop your settlement. Gloomhaven is also up there. Gloomhaven, fantastic. But you need the setup, you need the group. TI, I love TI. Don't play it enough. Once or twice a year. Would love to play it 5 or 6 times a year. Descent First Edition, same thing. And then the third pile are games that I enjoy playing, but they just don't hit the rotation enough. And certainly while I could cycle them out and trade them away or get them into better hands, because you want any game to be played out there, I do play them from time to time. Space Hulk is a great example. Relic is a great example. Fantastic games. But I get that kind of 40K feeling, Ergon and itch, satisfied by playing actual Warhammer 40,000. It's only when I haven't played 40K in a long time and I'm suffering from that kind of, I need some 40K. We'll go to reach those. So Massive Darkness. I wanted to lead with this intro of where my gaming personality falls. So certainly when you do a board game review or you offer the eternal question, I'm thinking about buying this game. Does it have a place on my gaming shelf? You know, those 3 piles, you want it to be in pile number 1. Organizational system number 1. It could be in number 2. You don't want it to be in number 3. So we want to kind of look in there. Massive Darkness is a dungeon crawler. The good, the challenges, how does the game play? I am a little bit biased in that I tend to enjoy dungeon crawlers. This comes in from my D&D, my Dungeons & Dragons background. I love games that have miniatures. This comes from the wargaming perspective. So for me, what works with Massive Darkness and what doesn't work? So what works is the leveling up. It happens very fast. I mean, first room you hit up, if it's a halfway decent draw, and there's not going to be any spoilers in this podcast, you get a halfway decent draw of cards, then you're well on your way to leveling up. So it goes very, very fast. It's like D&D on steroids, where by the time you're mid to end game, your characters are pretty powerful. Some people feel like you level up too fast. I like it for what it is. Certainly there's a campaign play where it changes things a little bit, but you get to sit down in one evening and go from level 0 to level hero. That's kind of interesting. And because it plays so fast, you can cycle in a bunch of characters. And you get to see them over the lifespan of how things go. So that's a plus in my side. A challenge in my side, the dice. I mean, at this point, we're used to dice with different types of symbols, and we're used to calculating those symbols. And certainly, symbol set dice, like Descent or Conan or Dark Souls, they offer a wider range than traditional D6 or D&D type dice. So you can certainly do a lot more, and you can customize the features as a game designer of those dice. So I appreciate custom dice. And when they work, they work. The dice work for Massive Darkness because they create a wide swing of scenarios. The dice accommodate based on the power and what you roll with the activations on the enemy cards and the wandering monsters and the boss cards. They produce enough where some monsters are just trash mobs and wasteoids and you take them out. And others, when they spawn, you're like, we have a major problem. So certainly it allows a wide swing. But you need to interpret those dice. And it took about 7 or 8 plays for me to be able to interpret the dice in the moment and understand what's going on. That learning curve, not that it's impossible your first game or two, But, and I'm being honest, I like the game. It does kill the immersion a little bit because you open that door, you spawn the monsters, you're like, yes. You spawn the chests, you're like, yes. The boss monster has a piece of loot, and that's very innovative. We want to talk about that in a moment. You're like, yes. Then you go in, you roll some dice, you get some weird symbols, you get a lot of symbols to activate. And now you got to look at your character sheet and kind of figure out, well, where does this go? What happens here? What can I activate? It's a little bit puzzly. Not that that's bad, but it does take a little bit of learning to get used to that. The other thing that I really enjoy, the two mechanics that I really enjoy, are the wandering boss monsters. There's a decent amount. Of course, look, you love miniatures, you will always want more. And certainly if you want to go in that direction, there's lots of expansions and ways you can utilize. But even in the core set, there's a decent amount that when they show up and they move around, now you're dealing with a different aspect of the game. What I really like about how they spawn randomly compared to, say, Descent 2nd Edition, which I also really enjoy, it's a different pace. You know, Descent 2nd Edition, you're making your way through the dungeon, you're beating up some minions, maybe there's a red boss, you're beating up on that. You know somewhere, if it's not revealed yet, from opening a door and spawning, you know somewhere there's going to be a boss monster, and that's great. That's a great way to end the evening. Same with Dark Souls. You're grinding your way to a mini-boss or a mega-boss, or soon to be a super boss. Wait, mini-boss, main boss, mega-boss. But Massive Darkness just messes with you on that. It could pop out at any time. I mean, it's wandering the hallways. We don't know. It's the dungeon feels more alive. That's what I really love about Massive Darkness, where these other games, it feels like static room setups, where like the monsters moved in, and that's where they are, and that's what they do. Massive Darkness has the interaction outside of the rooms, and that really intrigued me. I really like that. That said, it could be pretty swingy. You could sit down to play, and you draw a really tough first room, and something spawns, and you're like, I don't know if we can do it. I don't know. Does that kind of cause you to nerd rage a little bit? Does that kind of rile your neck beard? I don't really know. I'm okay with drawing a bad spawn because either I'm playing solo and I'll play it out, it's still entertaining, I'll try it, or more often than not with my gaming group, we will game for 4 or 5 or 6 hours. So worst case is we get stomped, we can play another game. We could do another 2 games of Massive Darkness. It's a little bit different if you were, say, sitting down and you had an hour and a half or 2 hours tops to play. I could see making the first couple of moves after setting up, and the card combo is a little bit different. But that's the randomization. You know, that's how we are. I mean, certainly you could house rule things or look from there. The other thing that I really like, and I haven't seen this in any other game mechanic, is the monsters interact with the loot. The boss monster, the mini-bosses, they've got loot. And when they attack and you activate the dice, they can sometimes activate these magic items. Some of them they can use, some of them they can't use. Again, the randomness is kind of interesting in the combinations and keeps it fresh with what's going on. But then that puts you in interesting tactical positions. Again, this idea of a living dungeon. You might be pressing your way towards an advantage, mission goal, no spoilers, and some mini-boss spawns. Normally you just ignore him, but he's got a magic item that's going to like spawn dudes or do something crazy, and you're like, okay, he's on the other side of the table, but if he pulls 1 or 2 free activations and he's blasting away with this magic item, we can't let that happen. So now we got to send someone over there. Do you send the Shadow Thief? What do you do? This kind of back and forth. Hard decision-making. Random decision-making because you don't know when and where it's going to pop up. And I enjoy that. But likewise, I could see the implementation of the dice mechanics, and I could see the implementation of the swinginess and randomness really, really potentially messing with someone. But from that dungeon crawler perspective, Massive Darkness is something different. Massive Darkness is something unique and different, especially if your gaming group or your collection has a lot of more, say, traditional dungeon crawlers, whether it was old school Hero Quest or Descent 1st or 2nd Edition, to now building on that.